The red and blue lights flashed across my porch, bouncing off the windows of my quiet ranch like a warning from another world. 3 police cars' engines, humming tires, crunching against gravel. I remember setting my coffee cup down on the railing, the steam still rising as one of the officers stepped forward, hand resting close to his weapon. "Sir, we got a 911 call about possible trespassing on this property," he said. "We'll need to see some ID." I didn't even flinch. I already knew who called. Karen Whitfield, president of the Willowbrook HOA. And she had no idea she'd just reported her boss's boss. 6 months earlier, I'd bought this place to escape city politics deadlines and the endless noise of corporate life. 20 acres of open land, horses, a big red barn, and the kind of silence you could feel in your bones. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. My little corner of peace. And it was outside the Willowbrook HOA boundaries. Or so I thought. One Sunday morning, peace ended with the sound of knuckles pounding on wood. I opened the door, and there she was, a woman in her early 50s. Crisp blazer despite the heat, hair perfectly highlighted, clutching a clipboard like a sword. "Good morning," she said in that voice, sharp, rehearsed, superior. "I'm Karen Whitfield, president of the Willowbrook Homeowners Association. We need to discuss your violations." I blinked. Violations. "This property isn't part of any HOA. Her smile tightened. "That's where you're wrong. The HOA has expanded its jurisdiction. You're now required to register, repaint your fence, and remove those unapproved livestock." I almost laughed. "You can't just expand an HOA. That's not how jurisdiction works." She pushed a thick stack of papers toward me. 30 days to comply or face fines. I didn't touch the papers. "Ma'am, I'm asking you to leave. You have no authority here." Her face flushed red. "We'll see about that. I know people, important people. You'll be hearing from our lawyers." When she stormed off, I stood there for a long second, half amused, half uneasy. I'd dealt with power-hungry types before, but something about her, the way she believed she was, untouchable, made me uneasy. So I did what any cautious man would do. I installed cameras. Lots of them. Over the next week, the nonsense started. Fake violation letters in my mailbox, notices taped to my gate, each one more ridiculous than the last. Unauthorized fence color, unregistered horses, improper barn dimensions. It was harassment disguised as paperwork. One morning I caught her on camera, inside my property line, taking photos of my horses. I walked up slowly, hands in my pockets. "Ma'am, you're trespassing." She smiled, smug. "These horses aren't registered with the HOA Livestock Committee. That's a $500 fine per day. There is no HOA Livestock Committee that applies here." I said, my patience thinning. She sneered. "You call the police if you want. Sheriff Thompson is my brother-in-law." I didn't call, not yet. I just recorded everything. Every trespass, every fake notice, every voicemail dripping with threats. Something told me I'd need that evidence. Still, after 2 weeks of this, I started to question myself. Maybe I'd misunderstood some zoning boundary. Maybe she wasn't entirely wrong. It sounds stupid now, but at the time, I was tired. I moved here to get away from control freaks like her, and somehow I'd landed right in their backyard. There were nights I thought about just selling the place, cutting my losses, moving again. Then one morning I saw it, the 911 call report. She'd gone too far. Claimed I was an unauthorized occupant refusing to leave. She'd told dispatch there was a potentially dangerous trespasser on my own land. So here I was, standing under flashing lights, 3 officers in my driveway, my horses startled in the pasture. The lead officer took my ID, ran it through the system, and his expression softened. "Mr. Chen, it appears you're the legal owner. Sorry for the confusion. We'll be having a word with Ms. Whitfield." I smiled faintly. "Actually, officer, I think I can help with that." I brought out my laptop, opened the security footage, and hit play. For 20 minutes, they watched Karen trespass, threaten, leave fake violation letters. By the time it ended, the lead officer looked furious. "Would you like to press charges?" he asked. I thought for a moment. "Not yet," I said. "Let me make a call first." I stepped aside and dialed a number I knew by heart. "Janet, it's Marcus Chen," I said. "I need you and Richard from HR to come to my ranch right now. It's about one of our contracted HOA board members, Karen Whitfield from Willowbrook. She just filed a false police report against me. There was a long silence, then Janet's sharp inhale. Wait. That. Karen Whitfield. We'll be there in 30 minutes. While we waited, I gave the officers copies of my evidence. They took notes, photos, even thanked me for being patient. I didn't feel patient. I felt like a volcano that had decided to wait 5 more minutes before erupting. When Janet and Richard arrived, they weren't alone. They'd picked up Karen on the way, telling her there was an urgent HOA meeting. I'll never forget her face when she stepped out of the car and saw the patrol lights. First confusion, then dread, and finally, defiance. "What is going on here?" she barked. "Why am I being brought to this violator's property?" Janet stepped forward, calm and cold. "Ms. Whitfield, are you aware that Mr. Chin is the Senior Vice President of Pinnacle Property Group, the company that manages your HOA's contracts?" Karen froze. The color drained from her face. That's impossible. He's just some guy who bought a ranch." Richard's voice cut in like a blade. "A ranch completely outside your jurisdiction, and yet you've been harassing him, trespassing, and filing false reports. Do you have any idea how serious this is?" Karen stammered. "I was just doing my job. The board voted to expand authority." "No, they didn't," Janet interrupted. "I spoke with every member. You acted alone. You abused your position to intimidate homeowners." The lead officer stepped forward. "Ms. Whitfield, filing a false police report is a misdemeanor offense. You knowingly lied to dispatch. You'll be cited for false reporting and harassment." Karen's composure cracked. "This is ridiculous. My brother-in-law is the sheriff." "Former sheriff," the officer corrected. "He retired 3 years ago." That was it. The exact second she realized the game was over. Richard continued, "Effective immediately, you are terminated from the Willowbrook HOA board. Pinnacle is severing all ties with you. You'll also be personally liable for legal fees resulting from your misconduct." Karen's voice trembled. "You can't do this. I've been president for 8 years. The neighborhood needs me." Janet's reply was razor sharp. "The neighborhood needs someone who follows the law." The officer handed her the citation. "You'll receive your court date in the mail. If you come within 500 feet of Mr. Chen or his property, you'll be arrested." Karen looked at me, then really looked. All that arrogance, all that fake power, it drained out of her like water down a cracked pipe. Her clipboard slipped from her hand and hit the ground. "I was just trying to maintain standards," she whispered. I met her gaze calm now. "By making up rules, by trespassing on private land. You turned a volunteer role into a personal dictatorship." "Karen." They led her to the car, still muttering about fairness, about how no one appreciated her vision. I stood there silently as they drove off, the lights fading into the horizon. When the last car disappeared, I finally exhaled. The air felt clean again. The ranch was quiet except for the horses, unregistered, unbothered, and free. A few weeks later, I got 2 letters. The first from the district attorney confirmed she'd pled no contest to filing a false report and harassment. 6 months probation, 100 hours of community service, and over $13,000 in fines and legal fees. The second, from the newly elected HOA board, was a formal apology. Turns out Karen had been embezzling HOA funds for years, creating fake rules, pocketing thousands. I didn't feel triumphant, just relieved. I walked out to the pasture, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the barn she'd once called unauthorized. The horses lifted their heads for a second, then went back to grazing. They didn't care about titles, power, or control. They just lived, peacefully. And I realized something then, something simple but true. Sometimes the best way to stop a bully isn't by fighting them head-on. It's by standing firm, letting them swing, until they hit something far bigger than you. Karen thought she was unstoppable. But power, when abused, always comes with a price.